Yep, 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 yep.
Yes, it's the Finnish Football Show. Thank you for joining us for FFS 8. My name's Mark Wiltshire. I'm from Explore Finland radio show. Joining me here today is Mark from FC Suomi. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
And Rich from Escape to Suomi. Hi, Rich.
Hello.
Yes, Rich is back. Back again.
Back again.
I don't think we have to start every episode by singing Eminem, but it's a recent tradition. So, talking about recent traditions, Rich, sit up straight, man, like a good soldier, and show everybody what football shirt you're wearing today.
I'm wearing a Yarrow shirt, which was very kindly sent to me by the club last year, prior to their relegation. I think I counted it. They have 19 different sponsors. So,
Nice.
Yeah, including a fur company. So.
Raking it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a free shirt. Someone's got to eat. But yeah, thank you very much, Victor, if you're listening. Yeah.
You hear these days of people making micropayments online. It seems to be what's going on there with the sponsorship of the Finnish football teams. Everyone pays a tiny amount to get a tiny logo.
Yeah, I mean, Hartwell, Jaffa, well done. Thank you very much.
You want a crate sent over to you?
Yeah, it's better than this tea.
Okay, so we're back for Finnish Football Show number 8. As many of you have noticed, new technology. We're using Webinar Ninja because Blab has been decommissioned, but this will not affect the quality of the show. We absolutely promise that it will be the same shambles that you've grown to love. I think that's the least we could do, the very least. For those of you that didn't see or hear FFS 7, that was the episode where me, Mark, Rich, plus Keke and Henry, who helped out in previous episodes, all got together and did a preview of some of the World Cup qualifying games that Finland has this year, talking about some of the different opponents that they're going to be playing. So we've had some really nice feedback about that. All of us did it in a slightly different style, and that seemed to be something that you all liked. So we were feeling in love. Thank you very much. If you're listening to this podcast now and you haven't heard that episode, it might be worth pausing, going and listening to episode 7, and then coming back, because I've got a feeling that, Mark, you're going to have something to say about these World Cup qualifiers. Is that right?
Yeah, I will. I'll try not to be as irate as I usually am, but it just happens.
I'm waiting for a rant.
I'll be good, I promise.
So in episode 8, we're going to look back at Finland's friendly with Germany, which was last week, and the World Cup qualifier against Kosovo, which was just a few days ago, and also look at some of the recent action in the Veikkausliiga as well. But we want your input. Now, I can see at the moment we've got a few people watching live. This doesn't have the same kind of social impact as Blab, so we're not going to pick up quite so many casual watchers. But I can see we've got Jake, Jules, and Chris online at the moment, so hopefully you can see us. And we're getting messages from Jake and Jules. So that's good. That's good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. We do want a little bit of input. If you look at the bottom of your screens, you should see a tab that says polls. And if you tap on the poll tab, there we go. We were asking a question. We want your feedback. Based on the performances recently of the Finnish national team, is it time for Hans Backer to get the Saka? And if it is, who should replace him? So we've got a few options there. Miksu Patalainen, Kanerva, a clown, Boopy, the bird that lives at the Olympic Stadium in Helsinki, or us, Team FFS. So we've got a few results already. I don't think I've cast my vote yet. I don't even know if I'm allowed to cast a vote. So the rest of you, get in there. And also, if you're listening to the podcast, then give us your words. In my opinion, option C, a clown, and option E, us. It's pretty similar. You pays your money, you take your choice.
I'm gonna vote for us just so that I can nominate Hans's cousin, Chew Backe.
Talking of recent traditions on the Finnish Football Show, that's not the first time that joke's been cracked, and we haven't had that many episodes.
We haven't had back Saka crack yet. So.
It'll come up later on. Stay tuned.
Obviously, for those of you listening live, if you want to listen to this again, the podcast will be coming out in a few days. If you're listening to the podcast, then the podcast has already come out and you've got it. Okay, so today's show, 3 parts as usual. Firstly, we'll do a little bit of news that's broken in the last week or so. And normally Mark will throw in something that happened today. So let's wait and see what breaking news he's got for us. Then we'll talk about the international games, and then we'll look at the Veikkausliiga. So I reckon let's start with Rich. You haven't said much yet, Rich.
No pressure.
Your news story was to do with PK 35 Vanta down in Helsinki.
Yeah, basically this is their first season back in the top flight. We really didn't know what to expect after last year. They got promoted via the playoff, and they had Shefki Kuchi in charge. He was manager, part owner, part cleaner by the sounds of it. Pablo Canago was involved. They had a very diverse squad. Needless to say, it's all gone horribly wrong. They're currently 11 points adrift at the bottom of the table. They've got 8 games left. They haven't won a game in 3 months. Everyone who's anyone at the club has left. Their top scorer, who remains, has got 2 goals in 24 matches. They had 6 points deducted and a transfer ban for various unpaid wages, debts they owed to creditors, etc. And the fact that we've got to September, they'll be relegated this month, I'm sure. If they even manage to see out the season, there've been rumours. Sorry, did I say 3 points? It was 6 points. Yeah. It's just an absolute shambles. I know some of us at the start of the season said there'll be goals, but they started off entertainingly anyway. Nazi Kuchi did relatively well before he started throttling people, which is widely credited with the sort of meltdown in the atmosphere at the club. But generally, it has been an absolute shambles, and you don't like to see it. And you know that almost every season, one club at least in Veikkausliiga will financially implode in one way or the other. It's a shame it's happened to them, but you know, sometimes people have to pay for the decisions they make. They'll go down. Who joins them, I don't know, because Shefki Kuchi could be in the envious position of relegating 2 clubs, as he now manages Inter, who are in 11th, and could, if they remain there, face whoever comes second in Ukkonen.
And let's also call out our good friend Henry Hakamaki, who was the one at the start of the season who said he thought that the BK35 might actually get somewhere. So,
somewhere.
Good on you, Huck.
Huh.
I must admit, I thought that as well, because I thought when they came up from Ukkonen, they were really combative, and then they added Nyaji Kuchi to that to the mix, and was it Kunago and Aho as well, and I thought that was really good business, and they were set up really in the right way. But I wouldn't. It's a funny thing, because it's not like since Shefki's left that they've had an upturn in form. You know what I mean? It's not like Shefki's gone and they've all like sort of turned around. There's something bigger at that club than just Shefki. And if you're talking about Inter, I know you always like to put me in the position to defend Shefki, but they were already down there before he joined.
Yeah.
So you know, it's I don't know. There is something incredibly wrong at the club, and I don't know if it's just that they've overstretched themselves to get to the top. It's
a very weird setup. I mean, you know, it's almost like without the money, the clubs in the English Championship trying to get promoted, they brought in a lot of players who didn't have any links to Finland. They seem to be mates of mates, or obviously have, you know, their scouts work in different ways, and agents, of course. But the fact is, in the last month, so many of their players have left. You know, you've had Ayala has left, Alodi's gone. Just this week, Kim Raimi's gone as well, and. Yeah.
Which, do you remember back in the start of the season, and Shefki, Shefki, there was somebody else as well, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about player financing, because the Veikkausliiga, they wanted to set up a deal where the club wouldn't pay the wages, that somehow they'd set up some third party agreement to facilitate, and it was sort of sold as like Finnish clubs can't afford proper players, and this is a good way to do that. Even stuff like that is a sign that, you know, the sort of traditional way of running a club isn't going to work for these guys. So it's, I don't know. It's a shame. Their women's team is amazing. Like, it's like one of the best in Europe. So there's some parts of that club that's really good and run really well. But I mean, I suppose maybe the finances are different or something. But
maybe they should play the women's team next tomorrow night. We got full fixture list tomorrow night.
Yeah. I'd watch it.
So, Mark, your news story when we last spoke was about a rather controversial interview that had been done this week.
Yeah, and I'll get to that. But just in the last hour, guess who has won? Guess who for the podcast guys?
The impression you weren't going to do this.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't going to do that. And then, like an hour ago, one player won the Super League's Player of the Month.
Teemu.
Which is Teemu, yeah. So congrats to Teemu. Just a quick one. Yeah, but the interview. I mean, it's a bit related to the internationals that we'll talk about later. But the interview that really stuck out for me was Lucas Hradecky, who went in the papers, which wasn't even after the game. It was like the morning after or the day after. So he's had some time to kind of cool down and think. And even then, he acknowledged to the press that there was no value in preparing for the Kosovo game by playing Belgium, Italy, and Germany. So by playing the big hitters and essentially defending for 85, 89 minutes and trying to hit on the counterattack, when you're going to play a team that doesn't play anywhere near that kind of football or that kind of standard or level. Now, that in itself is not like a particularly, revolutionary thing. We kind of all know that if you're going to prepare for Kosovo, Germany is probably like the last team you want to play in terms of preparation. But what is interesting is that we all knew and we all saw that Miksu's Christmas tree was not working for about 8-9 months before he got the sack. And there wasn't a peep out of the players in that squad. They were all talking about working harder and playing for the team and creating chances and, working within the system and getting better. And there wasn't at any point did anybody come out and say, yeah, this Christmas tree is pretty terrible. It's not going to work. So this is like the first time where there's a player who's come out and kind of essentially criticized the management that's going on in the Finnish, again in the Finnish national team, which I think is a really good sort of. I think it's a really good step, but it shows that Bakke is nowhere near on as solid ground as Miksu was, and that there's a chance that I don't think we bear that many hopes of kind of progressing through this qualification group, but I don't think Bakke is on as sturdier ground as maybe somebody like Miksu was back in the day. So,
but with that, you've got Hradecky, who's one of the senior players. He's not even a player with an axe to grind, or he's not getting in the team. This is the number one, certainly for the last year, 18 months. He's been the number one goalkeeper. Short of Moisander Eremenko, maybe he's the senior player in that team. And yet he's coming out saying this about the manager after his first competitive game. It says a lot. I mean, I know, he's quite an open character anyway, but it just shows how seriously they've taken it. I mean, no one knew anything about them as a team because, those players never played together, but they bossed that game. And, like Mark said, the preparation of those friendlies, they basically played in Schweinsteiger's testimonial 5 days before. And, they've turned up and suddenly a team with a bit of excitement has come at them and they look shell-shocked.
Not just that, but it's a team that we could have attacked. There's a team that we could they had a lot of energy and a lot of spirit, but we could have gotten far more out of the Kosovo game than what we actually got. And I think, it's like I said, it is. I mean, as well, I think out of all the senior players, he's probably Hradecky is the one that's not. I wouldn't say untouchable, but he comes out with the kind of his reputation well intact every time. Every time he puts on a Finland shirt, he's one of the few players who looks like he looks for his club side. I mean, the save he had from that right back that smashed it from 30 yards, that was amazing.
Yeah. So,
but it's I don't know. It's interesting times because you sort of got the feeling under the last regime that it was all part of a big sort of old boys club, and there was never going to be change until the absolute last. And now you think, well, if the players are sort of happy to talk openly about how how badly prepared they were, then there's a chance that we can achieve change.
Let's come to some of the details of the game and some of your experiences from the two recent games in a minute, Mark. I have my news story, and as ever, it's quite local news to where I am here in Seinäjoki. But we bought a defence. It's the one thing that's been missing. It's the one thing that's been missing all year, and I know that Jules was having a conversation online about this before the season even started, saying we haven't got to defend. We've lost our defence from last year, and it was quite clear. And generally through the season, more and more players have joined that defence. Abonima, Mate, and it just hasn't worked. It has been porous. And then towards the end of the transfer window, we signed Mark Valles, Andorran international, which before I saw him play didn't fill me with that much confidence. And then as soon as he came on the pitch, he actually looks quite classy, and things look tight. And we've had 2 or 3 good home victories, and now they've also signed Aymar, another Spanish player, and also Yohani Oyela as well. That's three defenders in the space of a week.
Oyela's a top quality centre back as well. Like he's too good for the Veikkausliiga, or at least he used to be. But he's a really good centre back.
A bad run with injuries, isn't he?
Yeah, cruciates.
Well, see, this is the thing, and our friend of the show, Egan Richardson, made a very sniffy comment the other day about a negative career trajectory. So I looked at some stats for Oyela, and he's played 24 games in the last 4 or 5 years, which, okay, so I assumed it was injury, and you've just confirmed that. But, maybe the fella just wants to come and play football.
Well, I think he hasn't played a competitive game since he left Hoyiko. That was October last year. He was training with Coventry and nearly signed for them, but for whatever reason it didn't go through. But I think he showed, some of, like a lot of players, maybe he's made poor or choices or whatever. I don't know much about the Russian league, but maybe he's one of these players who seem to come to Finland for half a season, get his form and fitness back, and he might get himself a move somewhere a little bit more high profile or something for next year. But certainly for the rest of this season, he's a fantastic acquisition for them.
Yeah, in 2013-14, he played as like a squad player for Terek Grozny, and he was fast becoming sort of a staple of their side before he did his cruciates in. So he played like Europa League sort of level. He played well in the Russian league, and it was just, the cruciate injury takes him out. What was he out for? It was about 14 months, something like that. And his rehab took ages. And once he was rehabilitated, they sent him to Hoyiko to get his fitness back, which he did. I thought he did, okay. Yeah. And then he tried. I think Hoyiko wanted to sign him, but he wanted to go back to Grozny to fight for his place, and never made it back into the side. So it's good for him. It's good. It's a good. It's not the traditional kind of Finnish reboot where a player goes abroad, doesn't get any games, doesn't make the grade, and then comes back to try it again. Not mentioning Axel Palves, but it's.
Maybe I was when we get to Veikkausliiga news a little bit later on as well.
Yeah, but so he is a really good sign, and I think what is it? Game in hand and 10 points off the lead, something like that.
Yeah, actually, I did some. Those listening will be stunned to know that I actually paper notes, and I've done a little bit of research ahead of this tonight, but I left it too late to do my homework, and I ran out of time last night. So,
the dog ate it.
Yeah, something like that. So it's 11 points off the top with 9 games to go, but only 4 points off of third place. Actually, cool. So there's Europa League to go for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about my feelings for what the reigning champions might do a little bit later, maybe. Okay, let's move on from the news, and let's talk a little bit more detail about the 2 international games. We touched on it a little bit, but Mark, you were in Germany, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really bizarre, I got to say. It was obviously it's an international friendly, but it was Schweinsteiger's testimonial, basically his goodbye. Everybody turned up teary-eyed, and the atmosphere was really subdued, and the stadium was about half empty, something like that. So it was it was sort of touching and moving, and all the Germans were like, "Oh, it's such a good fantastic player, has given so much for the country. I'm not going to do the impression in case there's, on the odd chance we nab one German. Well, that was barely an impression. But yeah, I mean, they were all the Germans were dewy-eyed because he's like Mr. Germany. And I mean, the game was this very similar to the Italy game. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I had a similar experience to Keith and his Italy trip with
you can't remember
beer in the stadium. Ooh, it's good beer as well. Anyway, so it was good to see Schweinsteiger cry. That's always enjoyable. And it was good. It was like nice warm evening, and it was good fun for the fair. But again, I think, if I remember right, I had like blurry, half-drunken notes on my phone, and we didn't get a shot on target until something like 89th minute or 92nd minute, or something like that. I think that was Pukki's one-on-one chance. And while we defended well and we looked good, like under pressure, in the way that we conceded 2 goals in 90 minutes, we didn't get forward at all. Jukka Raitala doesn't seem to have a right foot. And this is funnily enough, this is the things that we learned from like days before the Kosovo game, which we could have changed but didn't. So Jukka Raitala didn't have a right foot. Marcus Halti didn't have the engine to run for 90 minutes in this sort of central midfield berth that he was in. Robin Lod also looked pretty tired as he got past sort of the 60 minutes. The Germans, I mean, it's quite difficult to say, but if there was ever a time to beat Germany, that game was it, because the side they put out had Schweinsteiger in it, like in the starting lineup, and then they had a whole
B team, wasn't it?
B team is a bit hard. I think he had 4 or 5 players that were uncapped and that were like under 21 level, and in the second half he didn't even stick Ter Stegen. Ter Stegen started, so not Neuer, right, which is already a good point. And I can't remember the name of the guy they had in goal for the second half, partly because of the stadium beer and the atmosphere. But it was a really understrength team. They shoehorned Schweinsteiger into a defensive midfield place, and he hadn't played for a long time. So under pressure, he actually didn't do very well. Like, he wasn't playing particularly well, and he slowed down their counterattacks. So from a footballing perspective, there was a lot of advantages that we could have taken. And I mean, I think as well, because of the occasion, there was a lot of maybe extra respect afforded to Germany. And I think we may as well have gone there like almost sort of 3-4-3, or, you know what I mean? We may as well have gone sort of all out attack and made a day of it, because it seemed like it genuinely seemed like even the times when we had possession, we didn't really have the intent or the drive to go and hurt the Germans.
I think you've made the comment in previous shows about Thomas Lam playing at centre back, and yet on the first game of the championship season in the UK, he's scoring goals for Nottingham Forest. Yeah,
not headers from corners like a centre back, but like 20-yard strikes. There was one moment where I sort of threw everything to the wind, and I became that stupid, hopeful Finnish fan again, which was like, I think it was like the 50th, it was like 4 or 5 minutes after half time. Thomas Lam broke up a German attack, picked the ball up and drove with it to the halfway line. He fed it to Pohjanpalo in the middle, who turned and fed Uronen on the overlap on the left hand side, who smashed a ball across the box that was about maybe 2 centimeters away from Pukki, who just couldn't reach it. But I thought in that sort of brief moment, wow, like with Thomas Lam at the back, there is an additional dynamism. Like, there is an additional amount of pace, and I can understand why he was played in midfield so much, because he's such a good footballer. But he really did offer kind of out from the back some fabulous attacking intent in that one small kind of moment. But that was just the sort of glimpse.
Very good footballer in the midfield as well, though, couldn't he?
Yeah, and he does have the engine for the midfield. So it's, I mean, it depends how you want to play him, because Bakke's got this thing about 5 at the back, and if you're going to go with a Bakke 5, then he's good to have in there, because he can drive the ball forward. But even when he got there, I mean, there was basically one move on. So there was one pass to Pohjanpalo that was on, and there was one guy on the overlap in Uronen, and there was one guy in the box, which was Pukki. And there was no, it was well executed, but there was no other option in the final third. So there was no, there wasn't any particular dynamism about it. But I mean, yeah, he did really well. Defensively, he got out-muscled a lot, and even I think it was the German second goal. There was I don't know. I think it was Muller or somebody like that who strong-armed him when the ball Götze got to the byline and cut it back across the box. It went through the 6-yard box, and Lamb was basically well positioned to handle it, and he got sort of a bit of a shoulder in the back and flopped forward, and the ball sort of trickled through to Draxler to finish. So yeah, it was the Germany game was good atmosphere, and there was a lot of chances. I mean, the thing is, you walk away from the Germany game, you lose 2-0, and you go, we lost 2-0 to Germany. That's not bad, but it's still a defeat, and we still didn't really threaten anything or make any inroads.
But that was against Germany. They're the world champions at the moment. So 5 days later, first qualifying game against Kosovo, a team that didn't even know how many players would be eligible until a few minutes before the referee flicked the coin to decide who's going to kick off. So surely by Monday, everything was different. Everything was better. Or not so much.
Yeah, so we started the Kosovo game on the front foot, which was good. We went forward, but it became quite obvious and evident that there were two things wrong with our attack essentially against Kosovo. And first one was, I think, first 3-4 minutes. Robin Lod he was in the corner of the 18-yard box, and he got the ball, and he had a fair bit of space, and he sort of elected to kind of cross and shoot at the same time, and it curled away from the keeper's top corner and drifted out harmlessly. And then Kosovo had a couple of chances, and the next chance that we had fell to Jukka Raitala, who kind of cut inside and then hit a shot that I think knocked on the corner flag, something like that. And it showed that the offensive players that we had weren't sharp enough and didn't have the right preparation. And then the the wide players that were supporting our attack, so the guys getting up there to try and finally support our attack, were just not the guys. So Jukka Raitala has scored once in the last 5 years. I think it was for Heerenveen. He was playing in midfield. It was a sort of daisy cutter from about 20 yards when he was in Holland. But since then, he's switched clubs twice. You know what I mean? And he's a fullback, so you shouldn't really expect him to be, pinging, 40-yard screamers in. But by the same token, the way we'd set up really did allow. We didn't have the guys in forward positions that were prepared enough and that were the right guys to finish off chances. The other side of that as well is that Kosovo broke in the first 10 minutes as well. They hit the bar. They hit us. They hit us in the counter-attack. Yeah, and the same thing that we saw against Italy, the same thing that we saw against Belgium, the same thing that we saw against Norway, the same thing that we saw against Germany, was that when we lost possession and the opponent had a quick turnover, so Kosovo had a quick turnover, they found tons of space in behind your fullbacks. So in behind Raitala and in behind Uronen, they got loads and loads of time and space, and that's where the kid, the Kosovan lad, hit the bar. He was just about 20 yards outside on the angle, and he looped the shot straight over Hradecki, beaten all ends up, bounced off the top of the bar, and that would have been that could have been incredibly dangerous, because I think if Kosovo take the lead that early on with such a lovely goal, the way Finland kind of responded when they eventually did concede sort of showed that they might not have had the gumption to fight back.
So the comments from Hradecki about the teams they played in the warm up, you normally find that you play some warm up games against teams that are similar to the one you're about to play against. So a team similar to Kosovo from that region, maybe Montenegro or someone like that with a similar style. And
there's a team about half an hour away on the catamaran from us that plays exactly the same way that Kosovo plays.
Okay.
So Estonia, Latvia, any of these guys play in relatively the same way. It was like a 4-1-4-1 that they started out with. Estonia play 4-5-1, 4-4-2. Hey, KK. So they could have picked. There's a million teams in Europe that play just like the way Kosovo set up, and of course it's difficult to know which way Kosovo are going to set up, like Rich said. But I can tell you how they weren't going to set up, and that's like World Cup winners.
Yeah,
No,
I
mean That being said, we did all the right after they had the chances. We still did all the right things. I mean, we still kind of technically had enough. Roma, we got gifted that one-on-one chance. The defender tried to back pass, underhit it. Roma picked it up one-on-one with the keeper. What was he, 10 yards out, 11 yards out, and he couldn't find the net.
I didn't think he had a very good game actually on Monday. He seems to lose the ball.
He does, he pings like 30. I mean, one other interview after the match was Backers, and he said that he was disappointed we didn't find a lot of space in behind the Kosovans. And the Kosovans sat on the edge of their 18-yard box like most teams do, and we just ping balls like it was a really difficult system to get to work. You can't play in behind when you play a 5-3-2 because it asks too much of your wide players, and you need somebody in the box like Berat Sadiq or Eero Markkanen, who was on the bench, to hold the ball up or to win it, and we just didn't have it. If you ping long balls up to Pukki, it's not going to work, and it's not Pukki's fault. He's just not that guy. But yeah, I mean, we went in front. You know, Paulius Arajuri got another goal. That was really positive.
What do we think of him? He stood out for me in the few games I've seen recently. I don't know if it's because he looks like a kind of 1950s footballer, like something from Roy the Rovers or something. He's a big, upright guy. But I've noticed him, and yet somebody online during the week made a comment about why is he there? I think that was how I read it. So, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I love Paulius Arajuri, but he's not the best defender we have, and I think he's probably not the second or third best defender we have. So he's big and he's slow, but he's got. I mean, he is a good player. He's just not technically very good. And we need guys like Arajuri, who's huge, like who's not just in terms of physicality, but in terms of his presence. You know what I mean? On the pitch, he shouts at people and he gets people going. So, and that's his second goal now in 4 games. No, wait, hang on. How many have we played this year? Yeah, okay. Second goal in 2 competitive games because he scored against Northern Ireland.
And actually, yeah, I was going to say, isn't that the only 2 goals we've scored this year?
Northern Ireland was end of last year.
Against Belgium, didn't it?
Yeah, the other, and that was Kappe. That was Kappe's finish. So, yeah. I mean, I like Paulius Arajuri in the way he plays, and I like him in the defence. I can see why he has his detractors.
Jules asked a question earlier, and I promised to come back to it. He says, does anyone know about Backer's contract? How cheap would it be to sack him, and can the Finnish FA afford it?
Well, they gave the big speech about Miksu. That was the reason they gave for not sacking Miksu, that they couldn't afford to sack him. That hit all the papers. So I don't know if they can't afford it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how rich or poor the Finnish FA is, but I suppose they're spending a lot of money on refurbishing the Olympic Stadium. But I mean, I think they get grants from UEFA for that. So it depends. Back his contract, I think, is it 4 years? It's 2 competitions. It's two qualification campaigns. So it's 4 years.
So it's probably going to cost a bit, Jules, in answer to your question.
Yeah.
Keke's just said on the message board here, shoot me now.
Yeah, I mean, it's... He also said after the game, in addition to not getting in behind the Kosovans who sat deep, he also said that Croatia and Iceland will be easier games than Kosovo. And you just think, how can he, I mean, I suppose it's good for him to tell himself that, but how could that possibly be anywhere near true? You know what I mean? Croatia and Iceland are far better. They're far more offensive. They're far better organized. And Kosovo were great. I don't want to detract from how good they were as a team and how much effort they put in. But in terms of football, they could have been very easily beaten with the right tactics or style. And it's... I just think it's really naive for a coach to come out and say, yeah, Croatia, don't worry. Just because we drew with Kosovo doesn't mean we can't beat Croatia.
But that's because they're more attacking and they will leave more space for Finland to attack. We'll be able to get in behind there. They're
actually probably not as attacking as Kosovo. They're a lot more lethal. They could, like Modric and Mandzukic and those guys, they're a lot more clinical and they're a lot better organized, but they don't attack a great deal. We saw that in the Euros. In the Euros, they didn't score a lot of goals. They didn't create a lot of chances. They just have really good players who can score.
They control games far better, don't they?
Yeah, they'll have guys like Robin Lod and Marcus Hasty running all over the place and tiring themselves out in 20 minutes. So it's I don't know. I mean, maybe Bakke still thinks Davor Suka's up front. I
Good grief, Rich. That is the biggest glass of orange juice I've ever seen someone try and... I'm not sure if you were going to drink it or swim in it.
It's from the Bayern Munich club shop.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's one of the Steiner. It's a Steiner.
I had to pay for that, but
one of the few things you have that's football related that you had to pay for.
Shocking.
Mark, you were also at this Kosovo game. Tell us about the Kosovo supporters. They were in the majority, were they?
No. I think it's a bit false. So it was about 60-40ish for Finland fans. So there was a lot of Kosovans there, and there was a lot of Kosovan support in Turku, the town, before and after the game. But it was one of the best atmospheres I think I've ever been to in a game. They were just literally they were just happy to be there, and whatever happened, they'd have still been happy to be there. And it was, I don't know. I had to kind of a couple of refreshments, and I had one Twitter, and I thought I have to turn my Twitter off now because I made one comment with a guy which was like, we made you look good, we like this is, and they were like, this means so much to us, and it really, when you left the ground, you can't be angry or mad or frustrated because they're just so happy that they're out here qualifying. You know what I mean? You couldn't throw anything at them. They were, just really good spirits, really good crack.
Good of the Hukayat to graciously let them take a point away with them then.
Yeah, it was noble of us in a way.
A noble draw. That's true.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Veikkausliiga, and I think by that time Rich would have finished his biscuits and can maybe have a few words to say. Just to those that are watching, a couple of you still haven't given your opinion on our poll at the bottom of the screen, which is it time for Bakke to get the Saka? And if so, who should replace him? And far ahead at the moment with 80% of the votes is us, Team FFS. So I think that if that's the way everybody clearly thinks about this, we should probably get an application sent into the Palloliitto tomorrow. Mark, I'll leave that to you.
I've still got the form that they sent to the application form they put in the mall website. So yeah, I can dig that out.
Okay, let's have a look at Veikkausliiga. So I mentioned before there's a full fixture list tomorrow night, Friday the 9th of September, then again on Monday the 12th, and then again Friday 16th, apart from Asiko, who play on Saturday 17th. So there's a lot of games in the next week. It bugs me every season. You get to this time of the year and you've got 8 games to play, but it takes 2.5 months because of all the international breaks, and it really drags on. And you know what? End of October, watching football in Finland's a bit nippy out there. Wrapped up and gloves, trying to make some noise, clapping with gloves is not the easiest.
You should buy some of those ones from Fanimo that make a clapping sound.
Yeah,
€8.
That's true. It's not it's not leather, is it? But there's some sort of
they're fingerless woolen gloves with a plastic device in it, which I think makes the sort of amplificated.
It's like a clacker.
Clapping, yeah. Basically, it's instead of using your hands to do clapping, it's supposed to be labour saving. Maybe, I don't know. They're ludicrous.
That sounds ridiculous. I'm just gonna clap with my cold hands and with gloves. Yeah, and Jake's asking, what's this word amplicated? It's a good word, but what does it actually mean?
I was incredibly amplicated in Germany for the friendly. I was all over amplicated.
An advanced state of relaxation.
So I told you before that I had done some homework, and I looked at some of the stats from the end of July through till now. So about a 6-week period. Most teams have played 6 games. I think Hoyiko played 7 games, and I looked at 3 teams. Firstly, Vepsu, who after a bad 2014 season have been flying high this year, but not this summer. Not in the last 6 weeks. They've had 6 games. They only scored in 1 of them. They had 3 draws, 2 defeats, and 1 win against Seinäjoki.
I think before that they'd won 6 in a row.
I know, very, very possibly. But I think, Mark, you asked the question a couple of weeks ago, does anybody actually want to win this Veikkausliiga? And I think that they're all going to prove that they'd rather not, if it's all the same to you. In the same time, Seinäjoki have suffered from serious travel sickness. 3 3 home wins, 3 away defeats. Every time we've stood there cheering them on at home, they've looked really classy, and then they just go away, and I don't know. Well, I really don't know, because I don't I don't often get to the away games. But there's been some disappointing performances. Let's put it that way. There's certainly disappointing results, and 9 games to go. Seinäjoki 11 points off the top, but as I said before, only 4 points off that Europa League spot. So it's still open. It shouldn't be open with the amount of bad defenders that the club has had this year and the amount of goals it shipped, but it's still wide open at the top. And finally, before I hand over to you two for some words of wisdom, HJK in this same time, they played 7 games and they stormed to the top of the table with a run of 2 wins, 4 draws and 1 defeat. So there we are. It's open, which I guess is a good thing, because it gives us something to talk about. Rich, what have you got to say for yourself?
Well, the weird thing is that this season is kind of like last season, where HJK won with, was it the lowest points total in 7 or 8 years, where they were the best team, obviously, but it seemed like it was a lot closer, where the teams, maybe not at the bottom, but the mid-table teams, like HJK's defeat was at home to Kups. Kups have done better this year than I thought they might. I thought they'd struggle. And you've got, HJK 11 points behind, but it's so bunched up certainly after the top 2 anyway. If Mariehamn won it, that would be absolutely fantastic for them. They only won their first senior trophy of any kind last year.
Yeah.
And after they changed their coach after 14, 15 seasons, suddenly a change comes in, and they're potentially going to certainly finish in the top 2, I'd imagine. But then it goes to show again, I don't like always bringing it back to HJK, but they are the big club with the resources and the infrastructure and everything else, yet other than Morelos, who can't stop scoring goals, and the odd performances here and there, they are underperforming hugely for everything they've got going for them, for all the intentions and all the great marketing and everything else. They really are struggling, and what seems to keep their fans going is the Stadion Derby, 3 times a season. But if Mariehamn won it, that would be just immense, I think.
And it's been done with coaching rather than with the checkbook.
Yeah, and they've brought in players, but they've brought in. These aren't short-term fixes. A lot of the players are, from Åland. They come through the club, or certainly from the island. They're the top scorer this year, Orgil. This is his 2nd year there. Third season there. Even when they bring these foreign players in, they bed them in. They're there for 2-3 years plus. Orgil's now playing for the Jamaican national team, and there was talk in the summer he'd go to MLS. They get these guys in, and generally they have chosen well. They've integrated these players well, and the fact that they don't have a huge rotation, they don't have a massive squad to pick from, but they do seem to have a solid sort of 12 or 13 players, and in a sort of perverse way, losing Petteri Forsell may have been good for them. The guy gets the ball from 30 yards out, shoots every time. He's doing well in Poland. What was it, 2nd division?
Second division.
He gets the ball and shoots. It's almost like Wayne Rooney or Ronaldo, but without maybe not Rooney, but
like he's playing FIFA, but he started at the very bottom league.
It is, yeah, and it's almost like removing him from that squad has made the team gel better. They perform better. They seem to have a proper strategy and a way of playing that. I really hope they win. Almost like HJK last year in a very different set of circumstances, but again, they've come a long way in a short time. They've done things in a way that's clear, and there aren't too many mitigating things, or they don't seem to have their eyes elsewhere. As HJK seemed keen to become the big Nordic club. They wanted the glamour friendlies, the big names, but Mariehamn have done well, and who'd begrudge them that? I mean, they've generally, but again, they've hit a rocky patch as well where they've been dropping points. They haven't been losing many games, but draws. We had a match day was it last month where all 6 games ended in draws.
Yeah.
Better's paradise over here.
They also don't score a lot. I think it's Orgill's got 10, something like that. And then after that, I'm not sure who the next top scorer. It'd probably be somebody like Assis.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But they don't, outside of Orgill, they don't score a lot of money. Don't score a lot of money? Don't score a lot of goals. But I mean, it would be fabulous to see them win it, to see them take the title. But by the same token, you do have to wonder what's going on at Hoyiko. I wonder if they're just sort of sitting around rolling in the money, going, should we try? Nah, we'll roll around in the money a bit more.
But it's funny. You look, that obviously the problem with following Twitter or Facebook or something is you follow people you follow. This isn't a wide range of people, but the fans at Clubby do seem to be slowly but solidly becoming not anti-Lekosur or Rihelati, but certainly questioning their methods in a way that Bano was seen as 3 years ago as the next big thing, and he's taken Hoyiko to mediocrity. Rihelati seems so keen to make this club massive, but forgetting that the core business of making a club massive is to have the successful team. It's all, they're scouting abroad, they're doing this. They do have, a lot of Finnish players in and around the squad, but they're not gelling, they're not performing. And you take that centre forward away, and they are mid-table.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And the thing is, if you think about all of the players that Hoyiko have lost, but they haven't lost them recently either. They lost them like last season and the year before. So like guys like Valtteri Morin and Lud, even in his prime, they've just not gone any way to really replacing them. And it's it is, you sort of scratch your head because you do wonder, there must be a ton of, like, somebody like Naji Kuchi. I mean, he's not a very fashionable signing, and people probably, wouldn't like him that much. But we said at the start of the season, if you get Naji Kuchi, you get your 10, 15 goals a year, no problem.
And he has.
And he will, because he's that guy. I mean, I did sort of hope that Mikael Forsell would do something similar, but I think he's, what is he now, 36? He's a fair bit older than Naji.
It's 35, 36, yeah.
So it's I mean, he doesn't play kind of regularly enough to contribute that much, but I suppose they've got actually Belvas in, who'll be good for a couple of goals between now and the end of the season. Certainly, Asuko missed him at the start of this season after he left. So with a bit of luck, he might bring them a bit more quality, but it does seem a bit sort of too little too late. And you do wonder a lot, with the Barcelona game and the Liverpool game and all that stuff, where's the money going?
But, you look as well at the other clubs, who are performing, at least performing above their level or above where they were a couple of years ago. You look at Rops, they lost the entire spine of their team in the last 18 months, and yet, Robert Taylor has been absolutely tremendous this season.
Best things in Sander.
Absolutely. Koko's gone, but they've done well. They're not the glamorous team. They're not the sort of overwhelmingly wonderful to watch, but they are effective. They replace the players well. Asiko obviously going through it's strange being champions, but in a transitional season where they've had a lot of turnover of players as well. Alexei Eremenko's quotes from, was it last week or the week before, made me laugh a lot, where he said he retired from professional football when he moved back to Finland. Probably explains why he didn't last very long there.
Rich, you mentioned Rops and you mentioned Robert Taylor, and I checked him out, and he's a Finnish player, but he doesn't sound like a Finnish player. For those that are watching, listening overseas, what can you tell us about him?
He's got a Finnish dad. English dad. He actually had a bit of time over here at, was it Barnet and Lincoln, I think 2 or 3 years ago. But he's grown up in Finland almost in the same way as O'Shaughnessy or ad infinitum these players. He's come back. He was in Jyväskylä for quite some time this season. He's moved to Rops and he has been absolutely fantastic. He's been the driving sort of that taken over from Yagubi in that position, and becoming now the player in the Finland under-21 side that he didn't play in one of the games. Was it the Austria game?
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. He wasn't in the side.
Yeah, I was. That was shocking. That is an absolutely shocking, isn't it? He's what has he got? He's got something like 10 goals and something like 6-7 assists. He's been phenomenal this year.
He's got a hat trick in one game last month, didn't he? And I mean, he's a player that has hit a good vein of form at the right time, and he's made a huge difference. Where so many clubs bring in players from other Finnish clubs, and you've almost got that sort of perfect storm with him, where he's come from within Finland. He's had experience of playing overseas, but he's not an overseas player, so he's developed in a slightly different environment as well. And you do wonder if he stays in Finland, can he improve Rops much further? Not on his own, but
then you get to the HJK dilemma. Because 6 years ago, a player like Rob Taylor turns up and smashes it for Rops. HJK stick in a bid, whatever. He signs up and he plays 2 years and he gets into Europe, and then he goes off and it's a stepping stone. But now you're Rob Taylor. Do you chance it with HJK? Because there's no way you take that step, right?
And the thing is as well, the way football is in Europe now is, Rops is as much a stepping stone as any other Finnish club. Clubs all over the world are watching, scouting, whatever in Finland. They don't need that exposure of HJK being the biggest club. HJK hadn't played in the group stage of the Champions League in 18 years.
Yep.
So it's not like, and you look at even a couple of years ago in the group stage Europa League, Gideon Barr was the one standout player in that run. Maybe Lod as well to a certain extent, but they've both moved on to bigger things. But no Finnish player would move to HJK now, because really from Rops or Asiko or Mariehamn in certain circumstances, you think it's not a step up. It's moving to a bigger club in terms of everything else, but on the pitch they're no more than equals.
Yeah, especially if the other clubs have now got a relatively good chance of getting some European action as well. That might have been a motivation in the past. But now, it seems to have been spread around. There's many clubs that have had one fixture in the Europa League in the last few years.
Yeah, obviously some of those clubs don't even exist anymore. But but you think, that Europe is so small now. The world is so small. You look at all the players who've come over. You look at the situation at Hercules and Oulu. They've got a massive name as their manager in Amakachi. But he is bringing interest. There's a chap from The Guardian was over this week. He was covering the Kosovo game. He went straight up to Oulu the day after to speak to Amakachi and looking at their players. They've got one of their players played in the World Cup in 2010 for Nigeria. He's rocking up in the 3rd division off the pace and hasn't. There was an issue. He claimed to have been kidnapped at some point. There's obviously some extra whatever. But these clubs, they're big. They're getting better at marketing themselves. They're getting better at getting themselves noticed, whether it's the silly ways through YouTube or Twitter, or they are doing things differently. That Legiras Inter, they've got their manager used to manage Atletico Madrid, and now he's rocked up in the 4th division. And admittedly, there is massive money there, and there is a very strange infrastructure, which I know several people have tried to pick apart and find out what's going on. But that the league, the gaps between the teams in the league, on the pitch is still massive. But these clubs are getting better. These clubs are getting closer. And HJK, even now, their wonderfulness off the pitch in their eyes, it's not a bigger draw anymore, because, going there isn't a big thing. And even, you find that players coming from abroad will rock up in Rovaniemi or Vasa or Seinäjoki or Turku. They don't need to go to Helsinki to live there. It's not even that far to travel. If that's the way inclined they are, that they always talk about players coming to London, the bright lights and everything else. But they come to Manchester now. They come to Liverpool. They get us Bournemouth. It's
you were talking before about Robert Taylor, and just made me think of another actually English player that's come south from the land of Santa Claus, and that's Billy Irons. I don't know. I did a little bit of reading about Billy Irons when he signed for Seinäjoki recently. I haven't seen him play yet, but he's an English lad from your neck of the woods, I think, originally, Mark.
Yep, Newcastle's academy.
Yeah, and but actually grew up in Spain, Tenerife, until kind of mid-teenage years. Then came to Newcastle's academy, didn't make the grade there, and was picked up by Kemi 4 years ago. So the boy is 18, came over to play for Kemi 4 years ago, and has now got a move up into the other end of the Veikkausliiga. And it does annoy me when you hear the UK media talking about British players don't go overseas, and you just think, come on, there's so many. They don't go from the Premier League overseas because they're a bit too pampered. But there are lads out there with a bit of balls about them that will travel. And
but look at Hartson's comments about that Scottish lad who's gone to Germany. He said in his I think he's got a newspaper column. John Hartson was saying that Oliver Burke should have gone to Burnley or West Brom or Sunderland because people will see him play, rather than going to the Bundesliga because he didn't go to Bayern Munich. But he's gone to a club who, for all the reasons that club is evil, he's gone to a club in the Bundesliga who will be seen on telly in this country as much, if not more, than Burnley or West Brom.
He's gone to Red Bull Leipzig.
Yeah, 13 million quid. It's a lot of money. But, people were talking about him at Forest as, huge players, a Scottish international. And you look at all these players who, they have the strange roots. You like Irons or Richie Dorman, who was at uni in America, and all these players who've had very different careers. And Finland is a stepping stone for some, but some of them settle. They meet Finnish women, which always seems to be the case, or they settle there, and they might move on somewhere else in the future. Wayne Brown, for example, is now in Australia. And he, I meet him in my greasy spoon at the top of the road. I've got to pick that name up. That's my name drop for the day. But he, he grew up around the corner from me, and he, this thing about players going abroad. Like I said before, the world's a smaller place, and Finland, you get exposure if that's what you're into. You get a reasonable standard of football, a very different type of football to certain parts, and even from players from other countries. When I did some digging, because Yarrow had an issue with they had 3 points taken off them a couple of months ago. They played too many overseas players. But I did some digging and found a list of nationalities that you can play for without a work permit in Finland. It's ridiculous. There is about 90 countries on that list outside of Europe. If you're from one of these countries, you can crack on. No wonder they're coming here via their agents, and you've got agents flooding certain clubs or teams or whatever. But it's Finland should benefit in a way that hopefully it won't be the situation that happened at ROPS 6-7 years ago, and certain other cases where you get cliques, you get whole sort of things at certain clubs. But it's and I don't see the problem. I know when Shefki was at Honka, he took some players that he had links from Fulham or Palace. They went over there with differing results. Some didn't play very well, some did okay. But, fair play. I mean, it's not a bad environment to go abroad to Finland, play football.
Which is gone. Just like that.
It's quite eerie as well. And there you go abroad, live in Finland, and then
And I was looking at the screen, Mark, and you sat there dead still, and I thought maybe everybody's gone. I don't know if we're getting back. I stepped away just now. Did you talk about other form players? It was something that you wanted to mention. We talked about Robert Taylor, but you also mentioned Robereski.
Love Robereski. He's. I feel somehow really I feel really bad for Robereski, because it seems like. Especially now that the other forwards in the Finnish national fold are playing well and scoring goals. he's getting massively kind of overlooked. He's still a very good striker. He's still he's well on course for Golden Boot. You know, he's a very tricky player. He's still very good with the ball, and I think particularly, you know, in some circumstances, like against Kosovo, he'd have been a good player to put on to stretch the defense because he's far quicker than anybody else that we've got. He's a lot faster in the sprint and like over 5-10 yards, and he's always got an eye for goal. So I don't know why we don't give him a bit more of a shot, or instead of waiting for the.
He's been playing kind of more of a wide role and cutting in from wide, and seemingly has the license to go either side and find some space and then really bear down on goal. But he's been looking really sharp. And
He is, yeah.
I'm sure that Paul and Jake and Jules that are watching this now will be looking forward to seeing him score some goals tomorrow night, because that's where we'll be, behind the goal with the rest of the Cloppet making some noise, while my kids are at another part of the stadium just looking embarrassed at what their dad's getting up to. But there we go. We'll be there tomorrow.
Why is it on the wall and not on the? Okay.
I'm in my work office right now, so there's a few different sports shirts up there. It's an old one. That's not my one. So I don't know that we're going to get Rich back. I've tried to re-invite him, but he's not here. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover today, Mark, or are we good to?
In the same vein as Röpyriski, I could say Purusoiri's doing really well. He's scoring a lot of goals for VPS, and I don't know. He's a young talent. He's a young kid. He's been getting the chance this year, and he's been scoring goals, and he's Finnish. So keep an eye out for him, because I like the look of him.
We'll do that. So let's start to wind it up. Thanks to everyone that's joined us. We've had a poll running through this show, which some of you have voted in, which is it time for Bacca to get the sacker? And if so, who should replace him? And it was unanimous, but someone seems to have just withdrawn their vote. 75% of people think it should be us. No, it's 80%. Someone's messing around. Someone's playing with the poll. You're idiots, all of you. I don't know who's responsible, but you're very silly. Mark, get that application in. We'll do it. The three of us by committee. It can't be any worse. So let's have a little thing. Unfortunately, Rich isn't here, but he has got the Escape to Suomi blog back up and running.
Yeah. And
there was an interview I think he put up there just this week, but the name escapes me. So check out escapetosuomi.com. You, Mark, are going to be moonlighting tomorrow. You've got an appointment somewhere else, and it's on the Outside Right blog and podcast, and Chris is from Outside Right is listening to this. Let's hope he doesn't rescind the invitation.
I think I've been done now. I think that's it. It's all right. I'll understand 100%. It's okay.
What are you going to be talking about on there?
It just a little bit about football in Finland and maybe what it's more like in terms of being an Englishman abroad and if you want to come and see a game, where's the good places to go and what you've got to look out for. So I'll be talking about those damn Cloppet.
Yeah,
and how you have to watch out for them.
And for those of you that might be interested in a football podcast that covers a few different topics from different levels of the game, then find on your podcast player, check out Outside Right and have a listen. It's worth 20 minutes of your time for sure.
After you've checked out our podcast.
Well, I'm guessing that the people that are listening to this have already checked out our podcast. And on my website, explorefinlandpodcast.com, I just finished the summer repeats season, so they're all still available. Nothing new in the pipelines at the moment, but I'll keep you updated. Thanks again to everybody that's been here for the live show. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Rich, and until next time, we'll try and get this done again in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Try and get a couple out before the end of the season. So let's get there now in our diaries, Mark. There'll be a good few league games to talk about by then. So until next week on the Finnish Football Show, thanks very much for joining us. Bye bye.
Cheers.